do not take your time with a long eulogy to Brawili, since this afternoon's event represents that eulogy. I will therefore leave it to the poets and writers that are here to do just that. All I want to say at this point is welcome you to the Center for African Studies and to this event. Thank you.
We have asked a number of poets, a number of writers who knew Brawili, who have worked with him, to come, and the response to that invitation has been phenomenal. And I think that you are in for a very interesting, impressive, and I would hope also informative and entertaining afternoon. Our first memorial was in, I'm trying to remember very, can you remember?
The first one, it was at City Hall.
It was at City Hall, and this is in Johannesburg, and this is the very beautifully crafted, very beautifully made brochure or program. That is what I think one of the best pictures of Brawili, Professor Keorapetse. We had to find a way of choosing some of these images, and we wanted to choose something that was going to capture both the essence of the person, of the man, the friendliness, the seriousness, the fact that he was incredibly amiable, but was also someone with steel in his veins. And so we came up with this. And here we also were pleased that ultimately in the other memorial service, which was at the Market Theatre, artists and writers and musicians and people who were just motivated by pure, moved by the Spirit, came forth and spoke very movingly in homage, in tribute to Brawili.
I had this foolish idea that I would come here, and any other place I'm asked to be at this time, to literally fetch my father from every place he has been, to steal him from your mouths, to take samples of your hearts, the many, many pieces of him, here and all over the world, and keep him for myself. This is clearly not going to be thanks to one Mr. Mandalanga. I now have to stand here in full view of all of you, pretend to be intelligent and of good Kgositsile genes, and pray with a capital P. I don't embarrass the man that never spelled God with a capital G. Our beloved Grandpa, Papa, Malume, Love, Brawili, Keorapetse, Professor Keorapetse Kgositsile. The men were here to celebrate and share, stood on many platforms like this, and cracked a joke about his height, begging us to bear with him if he has to stand on his tippy toes to see the words he brings to read. He was a slight but colossal man. But I know we, you all in the arts, in the literary world, and us as a family, have had to take quite a pounding to acknowledge his eternal absence from our physical space. But we have a decent bank of memories to hold on to. From my childhood, it would be the smell of strong coffee and the sound of the old typewriter as his fingers would pound on it year after year, the same degree of urgency that just never seemed to cease. It will also be his bad driving. how his seat was always so forward, so far forward. You would swear he was trying to reach his destination before the flight started. And of course, not without a few foul words along the way. He would make a mistake, unknowingly straddle lanes or something like that. And when another driver would grow impatient with him, he would hoot and simultaneously scream, "Bastard!" And then the horror of it all swiftly moved to make you an accomplice to his crime by asking you the question none of us ever dared to answer honestly. "Mama, did you see that? Did you see what that damn bastard did?" Which you obviously responded confident, no. So as not to betray the man you knew would do anything. And then there was his love of the good stuff in life. That's what I mean. By that I mean quality in general. He was never obsessed with brands, but was very particular about what he put in his body, on his skin, what he wore and what he made, and what it was made of, and what he exposed his mind to. I'm proud to say that even though our family was never of great means, we wore nothing less than genuine leather shoes to school. Papa would look at what was on offer in department stores and just say, "That shit will ruin your feet. You might not even be able to run away from the enemy." Pure cotton, Palmer's cocoa butter, dark chocolate, good food, and chili, vintage Papa. His compassion and equally his impatience with human beings was quite savage. Papa never suffered fools or clowns as he called them. And he didn't spare his children either. He had catchy lines when he said something he hadn't thought of, like "Ow, Mama," or "Papa." And no, so what was that? Rains or fraud? Tell me. He had a lot of time for young people. When I was at university, I was always humbled by how students were drawn to me, like a magnet or a rock star in a different life. Young people that are searching, curious, engaging, and genuine gave him so much purpose in life. In a book, The Lion King, that Papa used to read to his beloved grandson Moya, lies a quote I simply love the imagery of. And I think it's opportune given why we are here today and where we are today. Where young minds are mined for gold, where our future lies. And I quote, "Simba, let me tell you something my father told me. Look at the stars. The great kings of the past looked down on us from those stars. So whenever you feel alone, just remember that those kings will always be there to guide you. So will I think we have a fairly decent addition to our ancestors, and we should be grateful for what lies in the stars for us to reach us. As Pablo Neruda once said, "Thou shalt not walk on." So I conclude by saying thank you to Guru Para, who birthed this idea. At our father's funeral on the 16th of January, about 6 weeks ago, his good friend Guru Para was resolute that it was absolutely necessary to have a memorial service in the town. He shared this with the family, and it was agreed. He did not know how, where the resources would come from to pull it off, but perhaps from the Kgositsile family, we are eternally grateful to you and all those who worked to make this day. Thank you.
This is easily my favorite poem by Keorapetse Kgositsile. It's called Point of Departure, Fire Dance, Fire Song. It opens up with a little anecdote that goes, a wise man told me in Alabama, yeah, I believe in nonviolence, all right, but the only way to stay nonviolent in this man's country is to keep a gun and use it. 4 years earlier, another wise old man had told me the same thing near Petersburg in South Africa. He said his wise words in Sibedi. The elegance of memory. Distances separate bodies, not people. Ask those who have known sadness or joy. The bone of feeling is pried open by a song. The elegance of color, a familiar smell, this flower, or the approach of an evening. All of this is now. I used to wonder, was her grave warm enough? Madigeled, my grandmother, as big-spirited as she was, big-legged. She would talk to me. She would. How could I know her sadness then, or who broke my father's back? But now, the elegance of memory, deeper than the grave where she went, before I could know her sadness is larger than the distance between my country and I. Things more solid than the rocks with which those sinister thieves tried to break our backs. I hear her now, and I wonder, does she know the strength of the fabric she wove in my heart for us? Her voice clearer now than then. Oigi, don't ever take any nonsense from them, you hear? There are memories between us deeper than grief. There are feelings between us much stronger than the cold enemy machine that breaks the back. Sister, there are places between us deeper than the ocean. No distances. Pry your heart open, brother. Mine too. Learn to love the clear voice, the music in the memory pried open to the bone of feeling. No distances. Part 2. Lumumba section. Searching past what we see and hear, searing past the pretensions of knowledge, we move to the meeting place. The pulse of the beginning, the end, and the beginning. In the stillness of the night, we see the gaping wounds where those murderers butchered your flesh, as they butchered the flesh of our land. Spirit to spirit we hear you, then blood on blood comes the clash. Swift as image in spirit and blood. The sons and daughters of our beginnings boldly move to post-white fearlessness, their sharpness at the murderer's throat, carving your song on the face of the earth. In the stillness of the night, informed by the rhythm of your spirit, we hear the song of warriors and rejoice to find fire in our hands. Ain't no mountain high enough, did it? The silences of the wind know it too. Ain't no valley low enough. Freedom, how do you do? Part 3, Fire Dance. There will be no dreaming about escape. There will be no bullshit Cold War talk. The fire burns to recreate the rhythms of our timeless acts. This fire burns timeless in our time to destroy all nigger chains as real men and women emerge from the ruins and the rape by white greed. The rape by savages who want to control us, memory, nature. Savages who even forge measures to try and control time. Don't you know, time is not a succession of hours. Time is always now. Don't you know? Listen to the drums. That right there is a point of departure. Now is always the time. Praise be to Charlie Parker. And it don't have nothing to do with the hours. Now, sing a song of now. A song of the union of past and future. Sing a song of blood. The African miner, his body clattering to the ground with my thesis that there is murder. Do the dance of fire, the rhythm of young black men burning these evil white maniacs. Their greedy hands clattering to the ground like all their vile creations. Do our thing for the world, our world. Now is the time. Now is the time. A breath of love, song for my woman, fire in her breast for our children, supreme as a climax with the music of the wind. In her divine thigh, there is life, there is fire. Thank you.
My bra is nie meer saam met ons nie. Die koerante het die mense wys gemaak dat Billy het die wêreld verlaat. Dit was nogal 'n downer vir my. Ek kan dit nie vasvat. Because why? Die laaste time toe ek met hom gemeet het hy 100% gelyk. 'n man sal gereken, hy was in 'n situasie wat jou sal worry. Ek kyk hier een van sy boeke wat ek het. Hy is 'n poet vir die mense. Die woorde is powerful, want hy het geëind aan die gates. En die kansen het voorgeraad met zijn woorden. Die government moet zien dat zijn boeken moet aan die library, schoollibraries wees, zodat die leiders kan checken oor wat hij geschreven heeft. en ken sy krag. Ek nooit nou Lisa funeral op TV. My gesig was nat met trane, toe ek dink van die tyd toe ons by mekaar gewees het. Ek het hom baie keer geterg en laat hom bid ons stoons van different ma. Dan gee hy vir my veilig kyker. Ek het dit geglo. Vrouw Willie, ons glorie, ek sal jou never vergeet nie. Ek sal altyd leven hê, jou ware echo in my mind.
You read on the evening when I launched this poetry volume for you here in Cape Town. And when I read it last night, it felt like a travesty because you hear his voice. If you heard him read a poem once, no other voice can actually ever read that poem. It's the poem Kate, and it says, "And death is the reason to begin again without letting go." About longing and lament of a night when a limp-hearted moon leaks through this humid air. And you on the dressing table in little sister's room, little sister who like you neither knows nor remembers any glamour of youth or exile. And your eye, piercing, follows every move we make like an eternal sentinel. Your death was an end of death, and here we begin again. My sister, forgive us our demand for the improbable, our longing for your presence here right now. Though what happened on that treacherous road and day we know, we don't know. Forgive us, for right now it is not you but us shrouded in green. My sister, I could not come to see what remained of you, even if I had dared. I couldn't whiskey my way out of your eye any more than I could jump out of my skin. Even on the 6th day after that treacherous Saturday that whisked you away from us, I could not come to see what remained of you. Your spectre patrols my restless moments when I know I should be slitting fascist throats or poeting your determined purpose, but I bounce to impotence like a check foreign to you in your fashioning our future. I could not even whiskey my way out of your eye any more than I could jump out of my skin. Not that it would have made a difference had your hasty death on that Morogoro road been foretold. That was what you had to do. Clearly, as a philosophical choice, a meeting, though at most of them there's not much more than platitude or pretension, clothes for the children, though to this day most remain as naked as their young souls. So now you are gone. You had to take a final road, not chosen by you. And finally, I came and looked, and was chilled to numbness. A mouth full of cotton wool where you waited, smile used to be. Your body all shrouded and deadly still. No missile from your tongue or eye, which always demanded light and love. Later, when I wished for rain to come and smother my impotent tears, Baba said, only the pillow knows the tears of a man. Now, like my sister's embrace across the treacherous waters and centuries, I want to put my mouth on paper. The poet in me wants to carve a monument in song. A simple song, stronger than any granite wall. A song that says, Kate Mulale is the people. Cassandra Wilson will sing. I would give anything to hear him read it again, and he lifted his hand like, let me sense the chaos. I will respond with a song. Why else was I born, says Jimmy of the purple haze, through Kalamuya Salam. Now look at those eyes. Look at her arms. Follow her little finger. I wonder what Jean Toomer, who could see the Georgia pike growing out of a goat path in Africa, would say about Cassandra Wilson tonight. Perhaps Cassandra does not even sing. Here, of course, a voice there is possessed by music like the rest of her. Her whole body is song. Her whole body has sensed the chaos. I say, look at those eyes. Look at her arms. Follow her little finger and understand perhaps why you were born with ears.
The flattened corpse of a mouse, claws frozen in mid-air, grains of salt and sugar mingling with the sand, the tale of a fleeing ghetto, rose petals delicate on the ground, the flesh of Bravili still clinging to his bones, all dead, all decomposing, feeding the crust of the earth. But he is not under the earth. He's in the flight of the swallow, the strength of the mountain, the stir of a breeze, the sound in a freedom song, in the voice of the poets, and everywhere he's been our sunshine. There are dead things in the dust, but he is not under the earth.
I met him in Chicago at a conference for South African writers, and we became firm friends. I admired what many people admire, which you refer to, that strange and unique combination of great generosity and significant judgment. And his analytic capacity that was always measured and never personalized, which I thought was a unique thing and lasted forever. And his trust that whatever he told you, you would take in trust. And I thought he was an extraordinary man, and I loved him. I'm going to read one poem that he wrote and one poem about him. This poem, many of you will know, and perhaps it's appropriate right now, given the loss of two great people in such a short period. It's his poem for Hugh Masekela. Man boy of the ages, mirror of my stupidity and wisdom, yours too. If you know there is no such thing as even a perfect God, we are all dispensable, like words or songs, like obsolete tools, like a mother's afterbirth. Rending, yes. We travel, we move closer, or apart. Don't we know that even the sun can be brutal? This then is the rhythm and the blues of it. Home is where the music is. And this poem is written by the now late Chris van Wyk, who was a friend of Willie's. And Chris's sons have said I can read it. I have changed the last line. Got to see them. This you may not believe, but I have a friend who is disguised as a grave. Let me explain. In Mozambique, I'm told there is a mound of earth in a cemetery of rusted crosses where the wind begins its surges in stately mango trees. Keorapetse Kgositsile states one time at cross that for once the angel of death has left Mozambique empty-handed. For Kgositsile, at this very moment, is probably blinking in the brass of the blues in Chicago. He's my friend, although there are many years between my arrival into this world and his, between his first taste of the Boer's whip and mine. I met Kgositsile in exile, though it was not so much a crossing of paths as a meeting on one path towards a free South Africa. And what exile, beyond the ache to be in his own country, to hear his own tongue whispered, shouting out its verse in the universal poem called language. What exile? I ask because this man took a part of his country with him wherever he went, displaying eloquently our token of blood and our will to be free. He slipped out of the country like a henpecked man steals out of his house to share a drink with friends. But any day now he'll return, garlanded in his own beard, and at the fanfare of his own laughter, to take what is his, but most of all, put back the chunk taken out of Africa. And when you see him, as I know you will, ask him about the man he thawed in the European ice, or the Tutsi who went to heaven before his time. As to why this man isn't lying in his grave, nobody knows. Maybe it's because even God cannot pronounce Keorapetse Kgositsile dead. Not until now.
It's entitled Tall Man. What now, Kgosi? What is of the deep, assuring, rusty voice saying, I am not the dying type. I came here to live. Was it perhaps the enticing words of Braduma? Maybe the instructive, collective voice of Malume Kotani and Uncle JB? And like a disciplined cadre you are, once more you accept another external mission. What now, Kgosi? Rumor has it that you intimated that Mandela and Bo Castro are busy with you and Hugh. Thank goodness Masekela is still grazing. And Gwangwa serenades with Umutu Itzilela. But you, Kgosi, you, the global colossus, they took advantage of your height and size. And again you answered the call with Kgositsile, hello? But now, Kgosi, what of your closed eyes that would widen with your speech when you make a poignant point? The gentle smile that disarm angels and expose fools. Did you not broker a deal with God a year ago, sitting in that church in Cape Town without that hat that was seemingly engraved on your grey head? On those pews, it was to be that your life with us would be longer than time, except that now our time with you is illustrated through your silent absence and defined by the mocking arm of the clock of death that counts every one of our tears as they resist in our wait to lay your body in the ground. Let me not hold you back any longer, since from this moment on, we only wish for the permanence of Miles Davis's siesta, so as to rest from your world of travails that took you to many lands and peoples. Maya, Baldwin, Baraka, Eskia Mpahlele and company are delighted. Your grandmother, most of all, is ecstatic. And this time, in this second exile, you reunite with your beloved mother, and I hear you sing with Nila. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, and I'm feeling good. So, Kgosi, until our company of three meets again, Mandla and I will honor the fishmonger lunch appointment with you. Your seat at the ten and tender and the Indian diner, like that of the prophet's ghost at the Passover meal, remains vacant and reserved. You and Mindus will not make me watch the two of you fuss over who pays the bill. Another thing, Kgosi, before you ask me, where is the poem in there? I am not a poet. This is not poetry, but my interpretation of Brataini, my blues to a hip poet.
As has been said, Willie was a very good friend, a close friend of mine. And you notice I'm one of the few people who doesn't call him Bra, because he was not, I didn't consider him a Bra, although he was a few years older than I was. We considered ourselves Patira, if you know what that means, equals, brothers, bros. And he was one of that small party of people who helped establish the ANC's mission, first in Africa and then in other parts of the world. Political exile and the exile experience of political movements can be enriching or impoverishing, and I suppose that depends on a whole range of factors, but amongst them I think we have to count also the quality of the personalities involved. I think the South African movement was both fortunate and unfortunate in that respect. There were movements from this country that went into exile as a result of the repression, and some did not survive. Others, like the ANC, of which Willie and I were members, we had tough times, we had a rough ride, but I think on the whole, when one looks at it, we can say that it was an extremely enriching experience for that movement. It remains to be seen, and one is hesitant to make judgments so early, especially in the light of what the late Joel Lai said to Henry Kissinger when discussing the French Revolution. 2 centuries after that revolution, Joel Lai said it's too early to actually do a proper assessment of its impact. So I'm hesitant to talk about the impact of exile on South Africa in general. It's too early to do that. But one of the people it definitely did enrich, politically and otherwise, was my good friend, Willie Kgositsile. Willie left South Africa as a journalist, so he had the ability to write. And he had learned that craft quite early and had practiced it with a newspaper called New Age, which had been serially banned by the apartheid regime beginning in 1952. It was called The Guardian and went through many different names until in the end they banned it by imposing restrictions on the people who worked on the newspaper, disallowing them from going into publishing houses and having their works printed. When he arrived in the States, he had that ability, writing, and engaged in some journalism here and there. But it was his exposure to the literary movements amongst African Americans during the 60s and 70s which helped him to blossom into the poet that he became, finally assuming the title of Poet Laureate of South Africa. So for him personally, it was an extremely enriching experience. And it brought out something, I suppose, which had been latent in him all those years. But it needed that exposure to the outside world for it to come into full bloom. During those years, Willie was also an activist in the African-American literary scene in the main, but also working very closely with the political formations, especially those of the left in the United States. And these days, maybe it's easy to talk about the left in the United States. In the 60s, we must remember, the United States was recovering from McCarthyism, and McCarthyism was very much alive and well in the political culture of the United States. And anything that spoke even vaguely of community of property was considered virtually treasonable in the United States at that time. So it wasn't an easy road to hoe to be close to people on the left in the United States. You ran into problems with the US authorities. But nonetheless, Willie was very active in that sphere. And it was in that area also that he built up the sorts of contacts and the sorts of, I suppose, links. And the sorts of relationships which we were able to reap in later years when we were building a strong solidarity movement in the United States. Solidarity movement in the United States was one of the last to come into existence. But ironically, it was also the one that proved most effective in spite of its late coming. Effective, A, because of the size of the African American community and also because of its political impact. Effective also, I think, because at that moment when the U.S. Solidarity Movement came into its own, it was very clear that we were headed for freedom. These sorts of networks Willie was able to build in the African American community as a result of informatic and other activities were most fruitful in that respect. So when we remember Willie, Mebrike, Mebra, we remember a man of many, many, many facets. And the one that we should never forget and we should never undermine is the facet of Willie as a political activist and as a militant of the National Liberation Movement. His contribution in the literary world, of course, will be sorely missed, but I think his analytical capacity and abilities will also be sorely missed in the political sphere.
Launch of this book, which is Home Soil in My Blood, which is the latest or the last of Rawili's poetry collection. And we were very fortunate to have him negotiating, discussing with Shara Books to have this come out almost at a time when he was on his deathbed. And I know that on those last days, Shara Books took the manuscript to him when he was already at Mill Park Hospital. And he diligently went through the text, the poems, and made those changes, those remarks. In a sense, tried to do a final edit, even when he was so thoroughly infirm. And so, for me, that is just one more demonstration of someone with an iron will who wanted to make sure that what had to be said was said, even when he was in pain. I am humbled and fortunate to have written the foreword to this.
Since we lost Willie and Hugh, I was recalling a conversation I had with Willie. He had this way of just disappearing at times and not being in touch with friends. And I had a call from Nuruddin Farah saying, where is this chap? I've been trying and trying to get hold of him, he doesn't answer. What is happening? Please find him. And then 2 days later, my husband, but what's happening to Kgositsile? Just call him, find out where he is. And eventually I got hold of Mandla, and Mandla told me he had changed his phone number without letting people know, which was quite characteristic. So I called him, and we were talking. I was scolding him, saying, you can't just disappear like that. And, oh, I'm sorry, that slow, drawling way of his. I said, when you change your phone number, you're supposed to let friends know. And as we were talking, my office started shaking, and the computer was shaking, and I screamed, and I said, there's an earthquake. And he said, here too, and he was in Johannesburg. When he said, here too, I said, in Johannesburg too. At that point, I said, okay, I must go out, and I ran downstairs because I didn't want to be in a collapsing house upstairs. And we had a 5.8 Richter scale earthquake. And so when we had these losses, I thought, it is like an earthquake. Losing Willie and losing Hugh in the same month, and coincidentally, they were staying almost opposite each other. And it's almost the same set of friends and the same set of people from one funeral to the other. And it did feel like an earthquake. And I must say, listening to Ipu saying, I found that deeply comforting, Ipu, to hear you speaking about your father with such eloquence and accomplishment. And it just says to me that his legacy is there. It will live on. And I want to quote from Njabulo's tribute, which I in my homage at Willie's funeral, which I think is appropriate for a launch of a book like this. I also remembered sitting here that the conversation that I had with him about, or him telling me about a young journalist interviewing him, and he was decrying the state of the culture of reading in this country. And this journalist said, so, Professor, can you tell me what your poetry is about? And he was very much concerned about that. And it was here when he was here at UCT. And we often spoke about how little our own poets are read. I also recall a conversation between Nuruddin Farah and a former president. We were invited to this dinner, and Nuruddin was engaged in conversation with our esteemed leader. And he said to Nuruddin, no one writes about exile better than Yeats. And Nuruddin said, yes, there is someone who does, and that's Kgositsile, which leads us to the conversation about how little we respect our writers and poets. And I did mention at the funeral that African politicians don't often quote African writers. So I'm not claiming credit, but I hope there was some influence on the president when he quoted Hughes Tumamina. So I think I will end with just saying that it's wonderful that this book has been written, and I hope that it travels far. We are going through a very worrying period when there's a big section of our youth feeling alienated and rejecting the kind of non-racist, inclusive political part of our political legacy. I see a retrieval, what's the word? I'm losing the English word. No, not the opposite of resurgence. A retreating into a narrow chauvinism. and a rejection of legacy and a rejection of a past generation of leaders. And I understand why this is happening, but I think it's a dangerous thing. And having been very much affected by the xenophobic violence in the past, and remembering how both Willie and Hugh offered enormous comfort at that time. You can see this in Willie's poem about, I forget what it's called, the one about children being born, that about refugees, and Hugh's obsession with work on xenophobic violence and to have an anti-xenophobic program. So I think that it's very important that this work has been done, and that hopefully more people will read it, and that we won't have future journalists asking what is Kgosisile's poetry about. This was Njabulo Ndebele in his tribute. He said, "Long may he endure in our bookshops, libraries, classrooms, lecture rooms, theatres, churches, taxis, trains and buses, waiting rooms, and from time to time in Parliament, where politicians can remind themselves that they can become better at what they do if they were able to admit their folly more frequently."
When the thought occurred to me at the funeral that I would be organizing, or that with help of people, many people, we would try and organize a tribute for Willie Kgositsile in Cape Town, I really and truly had no idea that it would happen. But because I am a novelist, and other novelists, short story writers would tell you, when I start a book that may take me 4 years or 5 years to write, I do not know whether the book will come into being until the book is done. And therefore, the thought that continued coming to me as I was listening to the people who came and participated and all this generous spirits and so on and so forth. The Italians would very often say to you, "Digli che ti mando io," meaning, tell him or her that I'm the one who sent you. Meaning, it's a best recommendation. And the best recommendation that I had was, all I had to do was to mention Kgotsitile's name. I would ring someone and I would say, I have no idea where it's going to start, no idea where it's going to end. We're going to do something for Willie Kgotsitile in Cape Town. And it's thanks to that, for example, that the name charmed everybody into accepting and offering help. So it's not me who did it. It's thanks to all of you who did it. And it's also thanks to Willie who did it, because his name was a key that opened many doors, many hearts, many memories. And the one memory which Willie and I shared in 1977, he and I, in Nigeria, he and I were walking together, and there was a man who was a great deal of nuisance, because he was always walking either on my side or his side, and he would be asking silly questions. And we wanted to get rid of this guy, and we walked and walked and walked, and we couldn't get rid of him. We went through dark spots, everything in Lagos. And then at some point, as we were walking, Nigeria, anyone who knows Nigeria, there are open sewers. And the man who was following us and pestered us like hell fell into that open sewer. And all we remembered, the two of us, was now we were talking, the man was gone, and we had no idea what became of him. 22 years later, when Willie and I, from 1977 up to 1998, we hadn't met. When we met, Willie says to me, "Do you know what became of that man?" I do not. So I thank you all, because I know you're generous and and I'm very grateful to everyone who answered my invitation, but you did not answer my invitation, you answered Willie's invitation. I was just the carrier of the message, the maker of the request. And I thank you very, very much. And I thank the musicians, I thank the people who provided, and Harry Garuba, who is a very, very shy person. I thank June Joseph, who has brought the books from Johannesburg. I thank many of you who've come. I thank Ipusim, whom I haven't seen for quite some time, except through I can't mention everyone, but I will mention one or two other people who've been very special also. And that is, everyone who has participated and has come is a very special person, and I thank you very much. And I suppose now the only thing that remains is the musicians to come and for Mandla to sign the books or something of the kind. And I thank you, Madame. I didn't mention your name.
That's all right. Thank you so very much. We have indeed come to the end of our program. I know that